to episode 20 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answer to. I'm Vib.
And I'm Sean, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. Before we move on, let's quickly award the much vaunted Expertise is Overrated Tinfoil Award.
Now, as a reminder, this is an award that we give out at the start of each episode to the person who had the most ridiculous point in last week's episode.
Are you happy? I'm happy.
I'm actually quite happy. I'm proud of it.
As you might be able to tell, this week, again, Vib is getting it for inventing the word humanid while talking about Warhammer 40k, which was just hilariously stupid.
Yeah, the hive mind humans that the Emperor is trying to create. I stand by it. It's going to be a great race. GW, pay me some royalties again.
Again. Doesn't matter how many times you ask them, it's not going to happen. We do have to special mention to Jimmy Space, the Emperor, for being literally the most psychic human that has ever existed and still not seeing the Horus heresy coming. GG, well done.
GG indeed. He really is quite something as old Jimmy Space. Anyway, let's move swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on, wasting no time, welcome a very special guest, the second ever guest on Expertise is Overrated. Welcome, Lionheart.
Hello.
Hello.
Really struggled as you did your intro not to jump in myself and be like, and welcome everyone, Lionheart here with part. Wait, no, it's not one of mine. I actually don't have to do anything with this. I'm not having to record anything. Because when I do the Warcast, I have to record all that and edit it. I mean,
if you're offering to edit, I'm not going to say no.
No. I mean, I'm 2/3 of the way through this beer right now, so I am all good.
That's impressive. You started that beer 5 minutes ago.
Parent life.
Well, of course, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. That's massive.
I mean, to be fair, I don't desperately need this beer tonight because Cubheart slept from 10:30 last night till 4:30 in one go.
Woke
up, had some boob, and then went back to sleep for a couple more hours. So, I that's the closest to normal sleep for the last month, and it felt magical.
That's really.
So the thing is, I probably jinxed it, and tonight I'm going to get 1 hour's sleep and just be a puddle of just flesh in the morning of just why.
See, and when you're doing that, just edit this episode to keep your mind off things.
Oh, I could, or I could probably weekly attempt to record some of my videos.
That is arguably much more important.
Yeah, one of those makes you money,
and one of those makes nobody any money. So. Anyway, so yeah, welcome Lionheart. Thank you so much for coming on. I think it's probably sensible for us to start with what I've called the Q&A.
Small time YouTuber, obviously. We're very happy to have you. We're always happy to give someone a break into show business.
I mean, I really appreciate this exposure you're giving me tonight.
I mean, massively, right?
Yeah.
It's fine.
This will increase your viewership by potentially about -5 viewers.
Great.
Obviously, on the off chance that someone has successfully found our podcast and doesn't know who you are, and I think the chances of that are actually 0, because we wouldn't have met.
I mean, it depends on which parts of the internet you put this on.
Literally anywhere that will take us.
No, it's a fair point there. It's a fair point, Sean. I think we should actually be very angry with Lionheart because without him, I'd be so much happier in my life.
Yeah, this is your fault.
This is entirely your fault.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny how the world works, I suppose, because I met Sean because we both happen to be mods on your Discord channel. Server, yes. I suppose.
Yeah, it's weird, as you say. Weird how the world spins.
I'm all about bringing people together, so I'm just glad it's worked out for you guys.
So, this is where it turns around on us, and when we start making our millions, in a week or two, he's going to claim.
Don't forget about me.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any risk of that.
No, virtually none.
Virtually.
Virtually none. Anyway, so you are obviously, as Sean puts it, a small-time YouTuber. That is to say, pretty much the biggest Total War YouTuber there is. Congrats on 400,000 subscribers. I think that was... when was that? A few months ago?
A few months ago, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Huge milestone there. I think that also means you didn't lose a bet against... what's his name? Legend of Total War.
Yes, yeah, it was. Well, thing is, I had like really nothing to lose with that. It was all about him avoiding having to play a Throg campaign, a Troll King campaign again. Any opportunity he can try and dodge doing that for his community, he takes it.
Yeah, one really wonders why he keeps making that bet.
He likes pain. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, but he so obviously hates that campaign. And say it quietly, it's not a very good one. It's not like, your community going, will you go back to do another Adresian Kingdom, or when are we getting another Rome 2? That is Adresian Kingdom, but like another empire or something like that. Like, Throg's just not good.
To be fair, out of the two Norseman factions, I like the idea of Throg more than Wulfric, actually.
The idea of.
Yeah, well, one of them's just looks like Tormund from Game of Thrones. Tormund's awesome, but the other one's a frickin' King of the Trolls. So that was an easy pick.
I suppose he is conceptually more fun. Yeah, he is just objectively worse, though, isn't he? I think is the problem, especially if you're a bit of a min-maxer.
They'll get some love again at some point when CA remember them.
Yeah, when Warhammer 3 rolls out and Throg just gets even more bullied.
Yeah.
But taking it right back to the beginning, so YouTuber. I guess the first question is when did you decide to get into all that, start making videos, and then turning it into what is now quite a successful career?
Well, I mean, like, the original videos that I did were quite by accident, just because I found a program that many like OG gaming YouTubers will have used called Fraps, which is probably one of the worst programs you can possibly use to record your screen, because it pulls every single like ounce of power that it can from your processor to capture your screen, which at the time was cutting edge. But as we now know, having plenty of processor power to run your games and everything else is quite important. So, I mean, everyone's gaming videos, I first started uploading in 2009, just when Empire Total War came out. And I had Fraps, and I was like, I wonder if I can use this. It says it can record my screen. I wonder if it can record this game I've just got, this cool new game called Total War Empire. But it's on this terrible new platform called Steam, and I like CDs and discs, and this will never catch on. That lasted all of about like 6 months, and I was like, patches instantly. This is amazing. This is great.
Hated Steam.
Yeah, my whole friend group. I remember my sort of whole friend group of gamers. We were all absolutely against it. We were like, no, we're gonna keep supporting the retail stores, buy the discs, never go digital. And now, I mean, it's been at least 7 or 8 years since I had a disc drive in my PC, and there's never going to be another one in there ever again. So
you say that, not to get political,
Viva la Steam.
Wait until GameStop actually reaches the moon, okay? We'll be back to buying CDs.
I've already cashed out.
Boo!
I actually made a profit on my investment. But 2009 started off just uploading video. I did a review, a really janky review on a YouTube channel, which I'm pretty sure is dead now.
Ooh,
he says, giving it a quick check.
Setting our 7 listeners a challenge.
Actually
there.
Dead.
Right.
Is it actually? I'll be really amazed actually if it's still alive somehow. I'm pretty sure I deleted it. It was called Just Drinking Tea. Amazing. Because obviously I had to play to the only like solid British stereotype that is internationally recognizable. and that is that we all drink tea, and that our blood is actually tea, and it's all tea. But yeah, I call it just drinking tea, and I uploaded this one janky review video of Empire Total War, and it was all the wrong aspect ratio. There were black bars on the side of it. It was as far as videos go, it was fantastic. Absolutely shocking. 7 minutes 33 of absolute shockingness. But it got 500 views, and I mean the channel had maybe 15 subscribers or something, and got maybe 25 comments saying, "Oh, you should play more of this. It'd be great." And then I suddenly realized that Just Drinking Tea was a terrible name for probably a gaming channel, and the only other name I had in mind for launching my gaming video career was my gamer ID that I'd had for years, which was Lionheartx10. So I slapped that into YouTube. I tried taking Lionheart, but a random channel that I think has not uploaded a video in about 10 years still has it. Can't get that, but maybe one day when if I can get to 1 million subscribers, I reckon I'll have enough big dick energy to sort of say, hey, give me that name. That's mine now. You've not uploaded for 10 years. This is mine. Bye. And I'll drop the X10, but it's created Lionheartx10, started uploading videos. That was back when the video limit was 10 minutes. And I thought it was a good idea to start making a really long Let's Play of Empire Total War in 10-minute chunks. I don't know. How did I ever make any progress? Because sometimes I can waffle on for 15 minutes before I actually do anything in a game. So I don't know how I actually managed to string along some kind of story.
I think it's actually really important. On the off chance, I think this is actually possible because the internet is populated by children. End turns in Empire.
Oh god, that would have taken up like 2/3
way
of the video.
More than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Especially with a computer that's eating your CPU just to record the screen.
Yeah, it's crazy that was a thing.
One episode for a turn. There you go.
It was. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking through it. I can see.
Did you just cut them out?
I don't know if I cut them out. I don't know if I knew how to edit back then. If there was anything to edit. It was just start, stop, throw into YouTube and hope for the best. I mean, there weren't any thumbnails back then. Or if there was, I definitely didn't know how to do them because I'm just looking back through all the old ones. But I can see as I got more proficient with recording, I started recording until 10 minutes 59 because it didn't hit the 11-minute mark, and therefore YouTube would accept it.
Nice. Gaming the system right from the start.
Oh yes, oh yeah, and then as you if you scroll back through all the old ones, you can see, a good chunk of the way down. Oh, suddenly YouTube added 15-minute videos. Oh, someone's doing well. So yeah, started making slightly. But that was actually, I think I'd been doing it. Must have been about a year and a half until that 15-minute update came out to YouTube, and you could upload more. That is just stupid. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I've just seen it. The Napoleon Total War Peninsula Campaign, Part 12. 14 minutes 59. There we go. It
is actually amazing to think how relatively young YouTube is.
It makes me feel old looking at that when underneath it goes 11 years ago you uploaded this, and I'm just like, Christ.
Yeah, it was bad because I clicked, as I actually sometimes do, because they're a weird guilty pleasure of mine. I clicked those old vlogs of yours.
Oh god!
When you were doing your A levels, because they're just so fun.
Oh, I've just found the one where I had a massive black eye as well.
Okay, this is not really what we wanted to talk about, but how did you get a black eye?
Hockey, field hockey.
That's really disappointing, isn't it?
I took a
sorry. That's a horrible thing to say. I hope it wasn't that bad, but I was really hoping for some expose, never before told story about how you just got punched in the face for being an asshole.
No, just took a hockey ball to the face.
I was going to say, you still didn't know that wasn't the reason. Yeah, it would just been off a hockey pitch.
So I forget that hockey, that could have happened.
It's a dangerous game, isn't it?
Oh yeah, looking at these old videos, I had hair. Look at that. Oh.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
CGI back in the day, 2009. So I guess that's how it all started. How is it going now?
Much better. Videos are much longer.
The hair is much shorter.
The hair is much shorter, nearly non-existent on the head, but growing longer on the beard, so on the chin, so that's all good. I've been doing I've been doing it full time, treating it as a job basically rather than a hobby since September 2013 when Rome 2 came out, just because channel exploded and earnings were jumping up from a couple of £100 a month to just over £1,000, and that was at the time where I just finished uni, and some of the jobs I were applying to were only offering me about the same amount of pay. So I was like, why not do something I actually enjoy right now and do this full time rather than something I'm not going to enjoy, applying to all these retail shops and things like that. So just took off from 2013, and each year it's gone from strength to strength. I mean, doing Let's Plays isn't the most optimal way to grow a channel on YouTube, and focusing on a niche within a niche that is Total War pretty much within the gaming sphere also isn't the most effective way to grow. But I've kind of found that even if there's been a rise of other Total War Let's Players that's kind of started dropping off in more recent years, channel's still going strong because I'm probably one of the few left that actually does a full campaign, and kind of one of sort of the places to go to see campaigns of the new games when they come out. So I've carved out my niche. I'm very happy lying in it. There's more flexibility in what I upload than I think some people think. I think some people go, oh, there's no way you could upload anything but Total War. But I've been able to do some of Paradox's titles, Crusader Kings, Mountain Blade, Bannerlord, things like that, and it all takes fairly well. And ultimately, with the Total War stuff doing so well, I can kind of afford to upload nearly whatever I want, and it's still fine.
But we were just checking. I think mostly to make sure that I just didn't put my foot in it. I will. Don't worry. That's coming. Don't worry. I will say something even more stupid than usual. But like the Dawn of War videos have done phenomenally well.
Yeah, they've done great. Like the Winter Assault ones, the first one, I mean, 30,000 views, and the other ones are 8.6 and 6.9. Honestly, anything over 3K for those I would have been happy with, because they're such old games, and it's like a niche within a niche. Like,
and that's a Twitch campaign as well, isn't it? Or
yeah, it's a Twitch campaign, so it's immediately going to put some people off when they see my faces on it. So I mean, it's just a win-win, really. I mean, yeah, the original I did Dawn of War at the start of the year, about 6 months ago, and that first episode was 51,000 views, and then most of the episodes were anywhere between like the 10 to sort of 15, 20k for most. I think maybe the finale dropped off a little bit, but those are good numbers. I mean, I always sort of say if I'm doing a game that's not quite within the same format of Total War, or not, if it's not Total War, if I can get 10,000 views on the first 5 videos, then I'm pretty happy. So yeah, really pleased with that, and it's just nice to play kind of some classic strategy games that I played growing up and that I've never played on the channel before. But as I'm getting older, and a fair chunk of my audience is kind of grown up with me and the channel, it's a lot of kind of shared experiences of, oh yeah, I played that when I was 16 as well, and it's nice to kind of be able to have that to kind of like relate to the community as well.
Absolutely. I think Dawn of War is one that's exactly like that for me, where it's a game that I played when I was a bit younger. I think weirdly we're all more or less exactly the same age. That's probably a year in it. So it's really very nice to see all that. Actually, before you came on, Sean and I were just talking about RTSs, like Dawn of War, obviously a great one, Age of Empires 2, but we couldn't really remember any good ones in recent years.
Yeah, are we just missing one? Like, please tell me we're just missing one.
I mean, nothing like Dawn. I mean, Supreme Commander wasn't that recent, but like it was after the classics. But
such a shame they never made Dawn of War 3.
Yeah. Although I look back at Supreme Commander, that was 2007, And I think, oh, that wasn't that long ago. Yes, it bloody was.
Christ. Hot take: Dawn of War 3 was amazing.
That was stupid. Like
even actually, I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm sorry.
It's too late. Guess who just won tinfoil for life with that stupid statement?
The only thing Dawn of War 3 can say that it did better than any of the others was that its cinematic trailer was fucking brilliant. And everyone was like, "This is going to be awesome."
Actually, no, that's fair.
all the budget and focus actually went into that trailer, and then we were just like, "Oh, let's make a game that's Dawn of War 1 and Dawn of War 2, but actually doesn't please anyone that played Dawn of War 1 or Dawn of War 2." Yeah, here you go.
Good games.
Yeah, I don't understand how you can have two very different styles or like focus of RTS, with Dawn of War 2 being on the RPG elements of building up your small Space Marine squad, and Dawn of War 1 being the very classic, build a base, pump out units, and straightforward strategy game. I don't know how you can have that pedigree and go, let's fuck this up, because it should be easy to go, let's take the base building and the armies of 1 and add in just a couple of RPG elements for the heroes. Like, that's all they needed to do. And they somehow went, oh, let's do that, but also let's strip down a load of these features and make it really streamlined. Because we kind of want to set this up as the next, like, StarCraft for the esports. And
it's not StarCraft, though. It's Dota. They tried to make the next Dota, but with just enough that they could lie to those of us who'd loved 1 and 2 and say, "Oh no, it's the same game, guys. Don't worry."
I mean, I don't know how you play Dota, but there's no way you can play a Dota game as quick as you can play a Dawn of War 3 multiplayer game.
I don't play Dota. That's probably the problem. I'm just, as usual, talking about things I don't know anything about. Sorry, that's a lie. I know everything about everything. But I guess we
it's just streamlined to the point where they wanted it super accessible, and accessible not only for single player but also for a multiplayer scene that they were trying to build up. And I just feel like focusing on that side, you can tell it's at a design level, that's where their focus was. It wasn't at any point, let's focus on making this the best strategy game we can make it. Because if they had focused on that, it would have been the perfect combination of Dawn of War 1 and 2. Yeah. Anyway, it never happened, so I don't even know.
Yeah, maybe Dawn of War 4 will fix it, or Dawn of War 3, should we say? One can hope, right?
Right?
I have no hope. Hope is dead.
Hope is kindled, my friend. I can't do that accent any justice, I'm afraid. Or that voice.
Leave the Gandalf impressions to Lionheart.
Yes.
All of it.
I guess do we? Well, I just don't know where I was going with that. I guess before we move on, just finish this half an hour introduction. What? 2 questions. What's your favorite Total War game? And is that the same as what's your favorite video game in general? Just before we actually talk about what we want to talk about.
Okay, first question, easy. It's Warhammer 2 because it's the best Total War. It's the best Total War game CA have ever released. Sorry, historical fans. I bloody love historical games. I love historical Total Wars. The best historical they've released was Attila. Throwing that out there as well. But the breadth and depth that Warhammer adds into the series, like, I know some historical fans I don't like fantasy, but the mechanic systems, everything that runs in the background, while at times it may not be as deep, like menu wise as previous Total Wars, it may not have as many buildings to build, but there is just so much going on in every single Warhammer 2 campaign, and every new faction that they add in, it just completely dwarfs any historical offering by quite a long way. But at the same time, it makes me excited for when they do eventually release a more kind of classic, historically focused, none of this fantasy nonsense or hybrid mode, to a historical title again. I'm really looking forward, because if they don't take advantage of what they've learned about adding depth and adding layers via unique faction mechanics and terrain systems. If they add all that in and apply it to a historical game, oh my days, that's going to be amazing. That is going to be brilliant. But equally, if they don't do any of that, then it's going to be bloody dull, and they fucked up again.
Well, no.
So don't fuck up, CA, please.
Please, we beg you.
Yeah, please, not again.
They try. They try so hard.
Yeah.
Favorite, is it the same as my favorite video game? I mean, I love playing Total War games. I wouldn't be able to do it for a living if I didn't. But I don't think I have one video game that stands out above the others. I'll probably have a favorite video game for strategy, and a favorite shooter, and a favorite MOBA or something like that. I mean, off the top of my head, really quickly, Warhammer 2, Call of Duty 2, and Dota 2. I would say those are my top three. That COD 2 I haven't played for years, but that was the FPS that I fell in love with and just played a lot of that. And I think it was probably the first FPS that I had a decent internet connection that wasn't dial up, and so I was actually able to play with friends. Probably that and Battlefield 2.
And that's a massive game changer.
Battlefield 2, yeah. I'm with you on
just
that one.
Huge, yeah. Good times.
So I think what we wanted to do was discuss a topic that's probably quite close to each of our hearts. Now, obviously, on this podcast, we've talked about J.R.R. Tolkien's work quite a lot. We've spoken about The Lord of the Rings a lot. I've put about some objectively true and completely unattackable views on the legitimacy of Aragorn's claim.
I knew we just had to bring it up again.
Untouchably correct views. So I think to continue our quest for controversy, which is a polite way of saying to continue our quest to say some of the stupidest shit that people have ever said about The Lord of the Rings, we wanted to ask you in particular, Lionheart, do you think... Actually, no, there's an important caveat here. None of us have any inside information on the subject of this question whatsoever. This is all pure speculation. But with that caveat out of the way, do you think that CA could successfully make Total War Lord of the Rings or Total War Middle-earth or anything like that? Do you think they could make it? Do you think it would be a good game if they did it to the best of their ability? And I guess the final question, should they do that?
Yes, and yes. No.
Fair enough. Thank you for listening.
Great episode, guys.
Good day and good night. No. If this conversation was taking place before 2016, before Warhammer 1 had come out, then I think we'd have all been like, it would be great, but CA have only ever done historical titles, a fantasy title from them. It's a pipe dream. The closest we've got is mods. But they have the best portfolio now to go to any license holder of any fantasy IP and go, look at what we did to the Warhammer franchise. Look at what we did to the Warhammer IP. This is exactly what we can do with your fantasy IP. Let us have it, basically. I think it's not a case of technical skill or could they actually make it. It's whether they could get the license to be allowed to make it. Could they strike up that deal to make it work? Could Papa Sega Sonic give them enough money to make it happen?
God, that's an image. Sonic as a sugar daddy.
Yeah. Sonic, I mean, that's basically it. Papa Sonic. Yeah.
No, I guess that makes sense. I guess maybe the question isn't a technical one. It's not a do we think that there's enough.
I mean, now, I mean, I said, it would have been a very different answer before Warhammer had come out.
Yeah,
I mean, that I was very skeptical in the build up to Warhammer, with the initial announcements. I was getting hyped, I was getting excited for it, but I kept on kind of saying the same sort of phrase of, I just really hope this allows CA to take the gloves off and just go crazy, because they won't have any historical confines to, be like, oh, we can't push that much with that unit doing that kind of thing, or this faction mechanic working that way. With Warhammer, you've literally got all realms appearing, and magic and flying and monsters and chaos and gods and everything coming together. So, and they've delivered. The gloves are off. I don't think they've ever put them back on, which I mean is kind of a problem in itself for some of their historical titles in some ways. But yeah, I mean, I think they definitely technically can do it. Should they do it? Yes. It's an amazingly well established IP, and I would say it's probably one of the most, if not the most, recognizable fantasy IP out there for multiple generations now. And obviously the recent, I say recent, the films that came out.
The films that came out, 20 years ago?
20 years. Christ. I'm so old. Yeah. The films that came out, obviously, you've got the Amazon TV show. I mean, if there was a time for them to try and strike up that deal, now's the time when, in the background, they should be doing that. And when it gets asked on my streams and stuff like that, of like, oh, what do I think CA will do after Warhammer? I mean, I always sort of, double it back and be like, oh, what do you mean historical or fantasy? Because they've obviously got historical teams doing their own stuff. But in terms of fantasy, CA are not going to stop doing fantasy games now. No. And I don't mean that in a sense of, some people are like, oh, they'll just do hybrid, romanticized historical games, or games that they can put in a fantasy or like Troy mythological mode and a historical mode. No, they are still going to have that dedicated branch of just fantasy games, because they'd be stupid from a business perspective not to. And at the end of the day, say aren't our friends. They're a business. They're there to make money. If they can be our friends at the same time, that's lovely. But
that would,
they're not going to abandon that fantasy arm of the business. At the same time, though, I think it's potentially unlikely that they'll go and do another IP. I would imagine Games Workshop at the end of this trilogy are going to be like, hey, that was really financially, beneficial for both of us. Here's another one of our IPs. Have a crack at this. I would imagine they're going to keep going with that for a very long time, as long as both of them can make money. So I've kind of come round to the sort of way of thinking that it's with anything now, with any kind of IP, it's never going to be a case of if they can do it. It's just a case of when. When being when they can get the deal on the table to be accepted, to get that license agreement, or when they actually have time, money, and resources to make that game with that IP.
See, it's interesting that you say that. So I think you're absolutely right in your streams. I remember one of the things that always comes up is, oh, what's the next one? Should they make a Game of Thrones Total War? Should they make a...
Well, that's my suggestion. I think that Game of Thrones should be their next fantasy IP, but that's a different question.
I think they missed the boat on that. I think if they were doing it, right, they should have done it about 5 years ago.
I think that's right.
It's kind of sailed, hasn't it? But I think the link with Games Workshop is a very good one. So obviously they could go in a 40k direction. I guess an Age of Sigmar direction, or just a whole new fantasy Warhammer direction. But I guess Games Workshop also has a license to Lord of the Rings, right? So maybe there's a potential inroad there. I'd have to defer to a competent lawyer. I don't know any, unfortunately, but maybe there's something to be done there. But am I right in saying that the Lord of the Rings sort of video game franchise is owned by, or the rights are owned by Warner Brothers?
You are, but they've passed it on, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know if they ever actually held the because a lot of the way the licenses work is they get broken down by genre. So Warner Brothers would have only ever had the one for like RPG Lord of the Rings games. Another company could have stepped in and done a Lord of the Rings RTS, because that would have been like treated as a separate license. Because that's exactly what Games Workshop do with all of their Warhammer licenses. Because obviously, there's so I mean, look at say the Dawn of War series. Relic had that, but at the same time, you had other companies having your Space Marine first person shooter licenses and everything else.
I think that's a fair point. It's not a question of can they; it's when will they. And then, as you're right, from a business perspective, they need to make the games that are going to make them the most money, because they're a company and that's what they exist to do. And it would be lovely if they could be our friends as well. But like, I think my problem is I think this is my own fault. I think I asked you the wrong question, and maybe a better way of putting it is I don't think that I can envisage a game made by CA that's going to give me the feel of Lord of the Rings that I want, and which is that feel. So it's that shot from Return of the King, rising up over the Pelennor fields with the army of Rohan mustered behind Theoden as the sun rises, right? And that sort of soaring wellspring of emotion, to me, is basically what Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and The Silmarillion, to a lesser extent, are. And I can't imagine being able to do that in a Total War game, because ultimately they're strategy games, and so that means that they're almost exclusively resource management games, and I don't want resource management in Lord of the Rings, and that's basically where my entire objection to the whole thing comes from.
Can I just add to that as well? I think that particular image for me, and I must admit, I'm picturing Lionheart playing this, right? Full cav army riding over the crest of the hill, coming down the classic Warhammer 2 style charge where you do virtually no damage and then all your cav die. And
I mean, they were shouting death as they charge, so I'm only fulfilling, what they were going on about, basically giving the people what they want. I mean,
it's very true.
I mean, my counter question would be, if not CA, who can make the strategy game that will live up to that Lord of the Rings dream? I can't think of another studio that makes strategy titles on that scale.
No, you're
Middle-earth 3.
And I think to get that scale, it has to be Total War. Because even Battle for Middle Earth, you could never quite get that huge battle scale. But I guess the campaign map side of things would be resource management and X resource required to recruit 320 Gondorian swordsmen or whatever. But the battles are going to probably be as close to kind of those cinematic scenes as we're going to get. Just because I don't think there's really anyone within.
You're absolutely right, and like from a doing this as battles perspective, CA are the only people who can make this game. I completely agree with that. It's just me being weird and peculiar about the fact that I really don't want to be worrying about upkeep costs as Elrond, because it just doesn't fit with my image of like how the elves work, basically. Because I don't imagine Elrond collects taxes in Rivendell and then pays his soldiers. I don't know how they work, but it doesn't feel like that, basically. But I don't know.
I think that's quite a good segue, because obviously, I believe the campaign is still ongoing, right? The Elrond Third Age. I want to say Divide and Conquer, but I can never remember those mods.
It's finished,
but it's a medieval.
It's done.
2 mod. Oh, is it finished now? I've yet to watch.
It's finished. 150 episodes. Longest ever series I've done. Yeah.
Well, congrats on that.
It's over.
But I guess, so in many ways, we kind of have a Lord of the Rings Total War, right? Just running on a very
I mean, Third Age and Divide and Conquer, running
fun
on Medieval 2 is going to be the closest you're going to get to that Lord of the Rings game, I think, for probably still quite a long time.
I think that's right, yeah.
Well, whatever happened to that Attila Lord of the Rings mod?
Is that Rise of Mordor?
Rise of Mordor is still in development. They have made headway in making a custom campaign map, so it's not just going to be a battle mod. They are going to attempt to see how far they can push the campaign map to make it a full playable campaign with all the factions. But I mean, Medieval 2 came out in 2006, and Kingdoms was 2007, and that was the framework which Third Age was built on. I think the first playable build of Third Age didn't come out until like 2012, so it was a good 3 years of solid development. Not 3 years, sorry, 5 years of development on that mod to get it to a releasable state. And okay, things have changed, and modders can probably work quicker and faster and know a bit more about it all now.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that that it's gonna be a very long time before that's in a before I'll be doing a Rise of Mordor Isengard campaign, if they don't manage to get it to a playable point.
Yeah, and I guess we've seen over the last few weeks as well, companies who own IP, particularly Games Workshop, come down on people who are monetizing their IP, and there's not one for this, but someone like Rise of Mordor, if they can't essentially monetize that and pay their modders full time, it's going to take them even longer because people will be doing it in their evenings and weekends rather than as a job.
Yeah.
And modders are never going to have the resources that for example, Sega-backed studio are.
And it's really murky, that, because I will confess that I think the only reason I bought that game was specifically to play Third Age. And I, to this day, have not played a single campaign of the base game.
It's definitely driven sales. But
I guess the question then for you, Sean, is do you... sorry, Lionheart. Do you like that game, Sean? And do you think that is a solid platform on which to build a Lord of the Rings Total War game?
Divide and Conquer?
Yeah.
Yes and no. I think...
Because it has all the money elements and the upkeep elements and
all
that.
It does. Right? I think it's a little bit hampered by the fact that Medieval 2 is 15, 16 years old now.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Right, so it's not just in terms of like it's actually quite hard to get it running and things like that, because it's not too bad, but more like there's a lot of game design elements in Medieval 2, like diplomats as agents, for example, things like that, which like them or hate them, they're not in more modern Total War games because they're just blockers on fun in some people's views, including mine. So I struggle with it a bit from that perspective, but I do also just a little bit struggle with it. There's mechanics in that, so that because Divide and Conquer has the Medieval 2 culture mechanics, if you're playing as, say, the High Elves, I think, Lionheart, you found this when you were sort of steamrolling across Gondor, basically. In order to... There's like returning settlements to Gondor, Dol Amroth, whoever it might be, involves you taking them in a siege, which is fine, and then you're given that occupy, sack, exterminate option. And no matter who you are, unless you're taking one of your own settlements, the correct option is exterminate, which just is for me is like really jarring. And that's only one mechanic of the game, which is obviously much bigger.
It's like the base game mechanics force you to play a specific way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that. It's definitely not the perfect Lord of the Rings strategy game, but I think it's probably just one of the closest that we've got. And you're right, unless it's a dedicated Lord of the Rings game from the ground up, it's never really going to stand a chance with people, I guess, like yourself, that have a very specific idea of what they want a Lord of the Rings strategy game or a Lord of the Rings game of that scale to be like. It can't be built off the back of an existing title, and I guess that's why you of feel like there's concerns with CA making a Total War game, because it would be perhaps too focused on the resource side or the managing your culture and stuff, which realistically within the Lord of the Rings universe wouldn't make a huge amount of sense to necessarily all of the factions, if any of them at times. No,
I think if you I'll come back to Pelennor Fields moment because it's front of mind at the moment. But if you go to that in the book in Return of the King, and there's a fantastic video on YouTube of Tolkien himself reading out that passage.
Oh yeah, you should.
To the music in the film, and I'll send it to you afterwards. But like, this is just slightly ad absurdum, but at no point is there a suggestion of like, and Theoden pulled off a delicate flanking maneuver here, and he made sure that those spears had their back turned when they're engaged. It's all about the glory and the like lyricalness of the charge, right? And I basically need CA to make exactly the game that I want Lord of the Rings Total War to be. and I'm very worried that I'm the only person in the world who wants that game.
But perhaps then, well,
maybe I just need to learn to be a modder. Maybe that's the answer.
Maybe. But perhaps then asking for a Lord of the Rings Total War isn't necessarily the right thing, but a Middle Earth one.
Maybe.
I think the issue that I have is quite similar. Is that I wouldn't want to replay, say, the War of the Ring or the War in the North, because in my head those are very fixed events and they happened. But perhaps, I don't know, maybe a first age game or fourth, fifth age game. Who knows what can happen.
Yeah,
which gives you a bit more freedom. Maybe that is. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if there's gonna be a Lord of the Rings game in the next few years, perhaps there's some kind of deal that can be struck with what Amazon are doing. I think it would make more sense that it is a Middle Earth Total War rather than a specific Lord of the Rings Total War. And again, it's more about the same way that they approach most of their titles. Okay, Warhammer, you're set along not a completely railroaded narrative, but obviously you know what's going to happen in the end eventually, one way or another. But I mean, especially with historicals, it's all about not replaying history, but dropping you into a historical setting, an era, a timeline, and then allowing the player complete sandbox freedom to go about doing whatever they want. If they want to follow history, they can. If they want to, do something completely different, they can do something completely different. So I think perhaps you're saying maybe rather than make it feel restricted to just a Lord of the Rings setting, do it as a broader Middle Earth title to start with. I mean, if they did, it would business sense. It would, I think, feel like it would make more sense to do Middle Earth, and then you would have a Lord of the Rings DLC, which would add in like the start positions of all the factions at the time of the War of the Ring or something like that. And
yeah, for sure.
You can have that one for free, C8.
That's a real licensing problem as well, because perhaps after passing Christopher Tolkien, it might be slightly different, but the Tolkien estate was always famously reluctant to let people write their own narratives within within the wider legendarium, right?
So then, back on that, maybe then a Lord of the Rings would be the only way they would allow it to happen if it was just you must follow this, and this.
But then again, they made Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, which are
just completely made up and just put roughly within the setting, and they created their own character, and they were actually, I mean, that is a good case point for allowing other studios to kind of do what they want with other well-known characters. Obviously Shelob's present in that, and she is depicted quite differently and has a lot of different things going on with all of that.
Well, and I mean, maybe himself. I mean, he's a proper elf,
I mean, maybe there's only a limit of like you can do what you want with 5 of our characters, but the rest, no, they're ours.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting mechanical point there as well, because you mentioned historical Total Wars, and it's just placing you in situations in history, and you got to kind of tactic your way around. I think both on the campaign map as well as in battle, because ultimately in history, especially if we sort of pick Europe, there's not huge amounts of variety in terms of what kind of tactics would have been available to you. And so that, or rather, what kind of troops and weapons and whatnot were available to you. So I think tactics are really important there. I think to maybe address Sean's concern of, how do you do the Pelennor Fields, when it's just, we're the Rohirrim and we're going to charge in and save the day. You can just go for a Warhammer approach, where everything is kind of batshit insane, all the units are wildly different, and implement it that way. I think they could make that work for me. Making all the factions feel different and have, not that you need to charge the Rohirrim from the side or something, but just, I don't know, pop a Theoden ability where they just do 5,000% charge damage or something. I think they could find the balance. I think I trust CA enough to kind of make that work at least. I'd love to play that, honestly.
And to be absolutely clear, if CA make this game, I will probably buy 2 copies, just because
that's very kind of you.
I'll be that excited by it. It's more basically say watching Lionheart streams or what have you. It comes up weekly, would you say, at least?
Yeah.
Could they do Lord of the Rings? And every time I see people asking it, I just get a little twitch, and I don't know what that little twitch is. I think it's this idea. I think it pedestrianizes Lord of the Rings very simplistically. I think what it does is it detracts from the story that Tolkien was trying to tell, which is not actually a story about massive armies clashing on the battlefield. That's the whole point of the Fellowship, that you couldn't do what they did with big armies. It's all about people and their interpersonal relationships.
A counter argument: the host of the Valar.
Yeah, but the host of the Valar don't fix the problems of the Third Age.
No, but they sure as hell fix some other major problems.
No, absolutely. But the host of the Valar is still not. It's still different, because that's a sort of war in heaven style conflict. And yes, they draw up in ranks and what have you. But
so I guess the question for you is how do you implement
how do you implement the fact that the single most important moment from a sort of narrative, the single most important narrative point that Tolkien was making was that Bilbo's mercy saves the world. That's a core message of Lord of the Rings that you can't put in a Total War game. Well, maybe you can. Maybe I'm just not smart enough. But
that's definitely true.
I struggle to see how you do that and remain true to the source material, basically. And that concerns me.
I mean, I guess it's the representation of the strength of a few breaks the actions of many.
Exactly.
I mean, it would have to have an interesting, they'd have to be obviously hero mechanics and made probably spectacularly powerful, but would that then work within balancing everything else around it? Probably not. I feel that if you want something that perhaps tells or helps spread the message of Tolkien, then a classic or straightforward Total War Lord of the Rings game isn't the way to go about it. But if you want to transport yourself into the realm of Tolkien and perhaps maybe get some whispers of those messages, but death and glory, big charges everywhere being the main points of action, then that's what a Total War game's gonna provide with that IP.
And provide it well, I think. It would just be undeniably fun. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yes,
I'll play the crap out of a Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth, Total War, whatever they want to call it. They do it, I'll play it.
You realize you're going to have to play the entire campaign using your Gandalf voice, right?
Oh, yes.
Well, I look forward to that. So yeah, if you're listening, which of course you are, best podcast out there, please make it just so we can force Lionheart to put on his Gandalf voice for 150 plus episodes.
Budget Gandalf voice actor available. You don't need Sir Ian. I'll do it.
Although Sir Ian, if you're free,
If Sir Ian wants to come on our podcast,
Ian, please, actually, honestly, if you're free, please do it, because it'd be so much better.
I think that sort of covers it for me. I feel like I've been well and truly chastised for missing the point, which I think is absolutely right. I think I should have been. I guess my last question is park Lord of the Rings for the moment. Yes, that would be great if CA could do it. Is there another fantasy IP out there that you would want to see Creative Assembly tackle? We've spoken about Age of Sigmar, 40k, maybe. I mean,
I think they'll go on to do one of those, if not both, at some point. I mean, I would have loved to have seen them do a Game of Thrones one, but I think the horse has bolted on that.
Well, with the new TV shows in the works, there's maybe hope yet.
Possibly. I mean, ultimately, I think I'm just more excited for the unknown of what fantasy do they do after they're done with Warhammer. If they're done with Warhammer, which I don't think they will be, but eventually one day they will be, and I think that's when it gets very exciting, because they've shown now they've got the portfolio, they've got that CV of being able to create and craft a cracking fantasy strategy game the world's their oyster if they can get the license, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of got 2 points for that. One is what I'm hoping turns into a shameless plug, because I feel you get asked this all the time. So now you can just link them this podcast. Do you think they could make 40k work? Because it is quite different.
I mean, Warhammer Fantasy already they've shown that they can do factions with large unit scale and small unit scale. I mean, look at the Skaven weapon teams. That could quite easily turn into Space Marines squads, quite nice and small, mobile. I think it won't be perfect, but I think they've definitely laid the groundwork, the foundations for attempting a 40k version at some point. Obviously, they can't just slap a 40k skin on it and call it a day. They've got to do a lot of other work to other mechanics, and I think you've got to have more destructible environments and things like that. But as I said, I don't think anything's off the table anymore. As preposterous as it may seem or sound, the moment they cracked into the Warhammer series and showed that they could do it. I think they'll have a go at anything that they can get their hands on.
I think that's absolutely right. I think the jump from having successfully made Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 3 to making 40k is a much bigger jump than going from making Attila to making Warhammer 1. But
this is something we have to bear in mind, right? Because this same team has been able to incrementally improve on what they have, right? Because if we think back to Warhammer 1, it was good. I think it was not necessarily better or worse. It was kind of different to the Total Wars they'd done, obviously, but it wasn't necessarily fantastic. Whereas Warhammer 2, they clearly built on that and have, in my opinion, as well, produced probably the finest Total War game that's out there now. Aside from just it being fantasy, I think it also just works a lot better.
Yeah, the fact that it's a living product and they can keep on improving upon it across the trilogy, and they never have to completely restart because they've got that base of the previous title to build on. I mean, just look at the quality change between the Warhammer 1 factions in Warhammer 1 and how they've then been updated and improved in Warhammer 2. I mean, they're whole new factions basically.
Yeah, someone say Beastmen. Went from shittest faction on the map to what the hell? What a wrecking ball.
I think I'm going to have to shoot now, guys, because Cubhart needs some more help.
No, of course. I think we're wrapping up here, so I think
it's good timing. Yeah, good timing from Cubhart there.
Just want to say thanks. Really, it's been an absolute
pleasure having me. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
thank you for coming on. Glad we were able to distract you from parenting duties, ever so briefly.
We apologise to your wife.
Very much so.
I'll pass it along.
Go and sleep. I imagine.
Do your thing, yeah.
Will do.
So I guess all that remains for Vib and I is to say thanks for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, tweet us at @zeroexpertise, check out our website, expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or come join us on our Discord server.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes. If you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. In our next episode, we are returning to the scene of some previous conflict on Expertise is Overrated as we head back to a galaxy far, far away.
Oh, yes.
This time, we will be reminiscing about our favourite duels in the Star Wars universe, which I'm sure won't spark any arguments whatsoever. Join us then for more nonsense.